Good evening. I'm Jasmine. Thank you so much for watching Once an Orphan. Joining me today is Kanu, an international adoptee from Sierra Leone. Hi, Kanu. How are you today?
I am doing great, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. So, Kanu, I want to jump right into it. You are an international adoptee by an American family who has never resided in Sierra Leone. They just adopted
No,
you from Sierra Leone. Is that
exactly.
correct? Wow.
That is
So,
correct.
do you know the circumstances behind why you were placed for adoption?
Yeah. So my biological mother, she died during pregnancy. So she basically had me and then passed away a couple days later to complications um, from childbirth. And then my father was out of the country at the time. So when he came back during the whole adoption process, he was surprised to find out that his wife was deceased and that he had a son. But within that same month, he passed away because he had a foot infection and didn't have the medical resources to help him at the time.
I see. And how old were you when you were placed for adoption? I mean, obviously if your mother passed away during pregnancy or during birth,
Mhm.
you were likely placed at birth, correct?
Correct, but my grandma took care of me for 2 years before I was actually adopted.
So you were in the care of your biological family for 2 years before you were adopted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and do you know why was your grandmother getting to a point of illness where she could no longer take care of you?
So that's the narrative that I was told that it was during the civil war in Sierra Leone, that resources were scarce and that there was a lot of violence and a lot of turmoil, and that basically they needed to save these kids who were in these lower income areas. Um, but when I went to Sierra Leone this past June and spoke to my uncle, my mother's little brother, he informed me that my grandma was told that I would be going to the United States for medical purposes and I would come back home.
So, okay. So let me be clear. It was your grandmother's understanding that you were just temporarily going to the United States, but that you would be returning to Sierra Leone.
That is correct.
And
And
so that, I'm sorry, go
when
ahead.
I spoke to people from the same community who knew me, who knew about my existence, they also said that 11 more kids were taken during that same year.
So, okay. So you were known throughout the community in Sierra Leone.
Hmm.
Obviously, upon your disappearance, naturally, people would absolutely have questions. So
Hmm.
then, did you find out if the narrative told to your grandmother turned out to be a falsified story, or if in fact there was some other business going on that they didn't want your grandmother to know about? Because in most cases, a biological family member would have to sign off on, to give you up for adoption. And if you were in the care of biological family, I just don't understand why it was told to her that you were going for medical purposes to never return.
Yeah, so that's where the fun part begins, right? I held on to this narrative that I was told since a child that my family was sick, that my grandma was old, and at the time that she probably wouldn't make it either, that I had no family left. So I just believed that narrative for 28 years of my life. Didn't question it or anything.
And so
And
are you,
then,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was saying, and then when I just recently, this past June, and when I went to Sierra Leone, I was introduced to the truth, and it didn't align with the narrative that I had originally.
Was your adoptive family looking for a Sierra Leone citizen, or what made them adopt internationally? Did you ever find that out?
Yeah, my adopted um, parents made a book from their perspective about my adoption and the journey and the process. And in that book, my adopted dad starts out by saying, I had a dream of a black boy in a dirt that needed my help.
All right. Let me ask this. Are your adoptive parents same race?
No, they are white.
Okay, so this is an international transracial adoption. And you are now 28 years old, or
I, I'm the lucky 29,
you? Oh
holding on to
well,
that nine.
okay. Last year in your 20s. All right. So, Kanu,
Mhm.
how old were you when they sat you down and explained to you why you look different? They explained to you why you are from Sierra Leone. How old were you? Because they had to give you a story. So I'm just curious to know how old you
Mm,
were.
I don't think they actually ever sat me down. I think when I was in preschool, I'm not too sure what age you are in preschool. I do remember asking, like, why does my brother have different hair than I do? Or why does my sister have different color eyes than I do? It wasn't about skin. I was more worried about, like, the hair and the eyes and, like, the clothes and whatnot. Um, but I think just throughout my childhood, they just gave me little pieces. They never actually sat me down and gave me the information. It was almost like they withheld my own story, and when they deemed necessary, released it to me.
How did that affect you? Because you're growing up in a household where everyone obviously looks different. The hair texture is different. The skin color is different. The eye color is different. Did that have any impact on
Mhm.
you in your childhood and your upbringing?
Of course, of course, I was the ambassador. I was the token of the community, and in my house, anywhere I went, I was always the example. I remember my dad one time at a store. Me and my brother both walked in, but he pulled me to the side and he told me that I need to keep my hands behind my back because the world's going to see me differently than they see my brother. So already as a kid, um, I had these like teachings in my head that I'm different. I'm not the same as my brother. I'm not the same as my brother. Then I go to school and then you learn about Black history in America. So now society was telling me I'm different. You're not loved. You're not wanted. You're not wanted. So growing up, I became a loner. I felt like I wasn't loved by my peers, my teachers, my community. And I came home and I obviously wasn't the same as my sisters and my brothers. So, um, yeah, it was tough. It was very difficult growing up. It was very difficult.
I can only imagine, and it sounds like it was. Did you ever ask your parents how come they couldn't adopt domestically a black child who played in the dirt? Because there are plenty of black children who play in dirt throughout the United States. Was it ever a question to them, like, was it necessary to adopt from Sierra Leone and internationally, or could you have done that domestically? Was that ever a question?
No, that was never a question because I was given the narrative that I should be grateful, that I'm lucky, that I'm a miracle, that I'm a gift from God. So I felt at the time any question against that narrative was wrong. I should be grateful. I should be happy. I shouldn't be sad. I shouldn't be having these battles inside myself. I should be blessed. I'm alive. So I never actually asked that question.
So outside of the teachings of, okay, so Kanu, when we leave the house, keep your hands to yourself. Don't look at anyone. Don't touch anything. Outside of that, within the
Mm-hmm.
home, did you ever receive any other teachings, so to speak, where you felt different and realized, okay, well, he gets this and I don't? Or was there any of that in the house?
Yeah. I mean, there was. Now looking back at it, I was always in trouble. Kanu was always in the corner, or I was getting lectures late at night, or I was just always never actually participating in the family events a lot of the times because I was grounded. I was this. I was just because I was acting out. I was sad and angry all the time. So yeah, especially when I'm angry and you put me in a corner and I hear in the living room the rest of the family who all look the same, enjoying a movie, laughing, enjoying it, and here I am, the only black kid, in a corner in another bedroom by himself. Yeah, I mean, trust me, you don't forget those things. You don't forget
How
that
did that
feeling.
affect you socially outside of the home where you went to school and say, for instance, you went to school with children who look like your family? Did you ever hold any stereotypes or resentments towards people that look like your family outside of the home?
Yeah, socially, I became the butt end of the joke, right? I wanted to be accepted by white people. And so that really it put me in a situation now that when I met another black individual, they'd be like, "Whoa, why do you talk like that? Why do you sound like that? Why are you dressed like that? Why are you acting like that?" And all of a sudden, I'm like, "Wait, I'm acting weird to you? I'm acting weird to the white people. I'm acting weird to the black people." And all of a sudden, I'm like, I am in between two worlds.
So, growing up, did you ever know any other adoptees where you could sit down and say, "Hey, this is happening to me and this is how I feel." Did you ever know any adoptees where you can, share that commonality with? Did you
Yeah, I did come across a few growing up, but of course, every adoptee is going through their own journey and their own trauma and processing it differently. So a lot of them that I did run into were in more of it's me against the world mentality. And at the time, I was still
did you ever feel like
sipping the
that?
Kool-Aid, you know. So I was like, no, I'm blessed. I'm happy. Like, I don't know why you're angry. Like, look at the life I have now. So I guess at the time, I just was on the same mind wavelength as other adoptees when I did meet them. So we just didn't ever see eye to eye. And we never actually been like, hey, we're both adopted. We should be best friends. Um,
What is your relationship like now with your adoptive family?
yeah, now it's well, I just went to Sierra Leone and met my biological family for the first time in June 2023. Again, I didn't know they
Congrats.
existed my entire. So now I'm trying to keep the peace. You know, I want to understand why my parents decided to withhold this information from me. I want to know why it was a closed adoption. I want to know why it seems almost um, borderline human trafficking. And they knew about it. They provided me the information. They provided me the documents, the conversations. So it's just for me, it feels like I was lied to my entire life. Being told that you should be grateful and blessed, while the reality is you were kind of taken, you were stolen. And that's it's tough.
So when you say, "I'm just trying to keep the peace," whose peace are you keeping? Is it yours? Is it for yourself? Is it for the peace of your adoptive family? Or is it for the peace of your biological family in Africa?
It's everything above. I think sometimes it's not fair because it almost feels like the burden's put on the adoptee shoulder, and it's like we
Of
never had
course.
a choice in the beginning. You know, I wanted to keep the peace because I always felt like I had to be the one to bridge my family. For some reason, the adopted kid is the one who's trying to bridge the biological family together.
Right.
Um, and I didn't want to I didn't want to come back home and completely shun out my only family I've known my entire life and feel even more alone. Um, yeah, so I was just trying to keep balance and keep an open mind. But recently, I've been going through more of the files and whatnot, and I'm losing the peace because the truth is coming out.
What was that like when you went to Sierra Leone and met your biological family?
Yo, I don't even have words for it. I remember when I landed, and then on the intercom they say, "Oh, welcome to Freetown, Sierra Leone." I just remember like being like almost like bum rushed by emotions, feelings immediately, almost like it was almost like being hugged from behind, but it was like a hug from someone you've known your entire life.
Mm,
I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but I
it
felt
does.
at peace and I felt at home for the first time in life. It was almost like a internal feeling because I think all adoptees, we all can relate on knowing that emptiness,
Right.
that hole that's just in your stomach that nothing can feed it. That feeling was gone, and it was filled with just love, like love that I have never felt before. It wasn't like a forced love or anything. It was just like ah, like something clicked, like oh, I'm home, and it was
How
liberating.
how long was that visit?
It was for 14 days, so only 2 weeks, real really short, but it felt longer. Trust me.
And did you ever feel like I could seriously stay here?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then in a heartbeat, I was like, yeah, this is makes more sense. I don't have to have a dual consciousness in Africa, anywhere in Africa.
Right.
I can just be myself. I can walk into a store and just be myself. I can walk in the street, be myself. And growing up, and even now today, because I'm located Tucson, Arizona. Um, I'm still not even like in spaces where I belong, you know.
What was the talk like when you said, "Hey, mom, dad, I'm going to Sierra Leone to meet my biological parents? I mean, sorry, family."
Yeah, well, what was the talk like talking to my adoptive parents
Yes,
about letting them
about
know I'm
your
going
visit to
home?
see. Hmm.
Um, mhm. I didn't tell them. I didn't tell them I met my. I found my family until. I didn't tell them I found my family and I'm going to Sierra Leone until 2 weeks before my trip.
Mm. And what was that talk
Yeah,
like?
I just didn't need them. Mm, it wasn't really a talk. It was just me telling them like, hey, I found my uncle. I found my mother's brother. I found her sisters. Um, I'm going to Sierra Leone. I'm going to Freetown. And of course, they try to be like, "Oh, we'll just be careful. There's a lot of liars and scammers there, and this and that." Like the white narrative that I was fed 20 plus years. And I think like the last like 2 days before I left, my adopted dad sent me money. He was like, "Well, here's money you can disperse to your family and this and that." And in my head, it felt like a way of him clearing his conscience, being like, "Hey, here's money to help them." Like, I don't know how to explain it. It just felt wrong,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but that was the talk we had. It was just me letting them know, like, "Hey, I'm going. This is what's happening. This is what's happening."
Did you, when you say you felt like it was wrong, did you express that to him? Did you say, "No, Dad, I think I'm fine. It doesn't feel right that you're sending money to my family, through me." Did you express that?
No, I did not. No, I did not. I think at the time there's too many highs of emotions. I think it was like, yeah, wait, I just found a family. I'm gonna go meet my family in 2 weeks. And at the same time, it's like, hey, I still love you, mom and dad in the United States. Still love you, but I'm looking at you with one eye open, because I'm like, hey, you told me I didn't have a family.
Right.
What is this? What is this? So no, I didn't express that, but I wish I did. You know.
How did you find your family?
So they this past year they've given me my adoption files, like all my papers, all the conversations, like anything that gathered through those years in my adoption process, they gave it to me. And I guess the one thing that I didn't like, they decided when I was ready to have it. I told them, why wasn't I given this information earlier? My dad said you were not ready. I wasn't ready for my own story as a crazy concept in my head. Just if you're asking me. But on
Yeah.
my mother's death certificate is her home address because that's where she died because that's where she gave birth.
Mm.
And I had contacts in Sierra Leone, so I've been desperately trying to find a way home. And one of the contacts, I basically just asked, like, hey, when you get a chance, can you swing by this address and just show these pictures around, just ask around. That's it. About an hour later, he calls me. He said, "Hey, Kanu, I found your uncle." And I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, well, wait. I've been told that there's a bunch of scammers, liars, like this could be a trick. I could be getting robbed. I'm from the United States. So I talked to this guy who says he's my uncle, and I drill him with questions. When were you in this? Who is this? Who is that? Boom, 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 right? And he answered everything flawlessly, perfectly. He was able to like name the adoption agency, the Cheryl, the lady who was in charge, the one who was speaking with the grandma and everything. And then he said, "Yeah, we all know you and remember you because of your grandma." Um, and then I said, "Oh, is she there? Can I speak to her?" And they said, "No, no, she passed away." I was like, "Oh, that's what I was told. She died when I was young." He said, "No, Kanu, your grandma died last year." So for me, the closest person to me biologically is now deceased. And that's because my parents were sitting on this information for 20 plus years. And within 1 year of the information, I found my family. And with 20 years, they never tried, cared, or anything, and told me that I had no family. I don't know.
So, I hear a lot of stories where the adoptee is given this information on their 18th birthday or right as they turn 18. and you didn't
Hmm.
get this information until a year or so ago. And I'm curious to know what made your father believe you weren't ready for the information.
I mean, it's in my head, I always feel like I was under a microscope. I feel like my siblings could light their hair on fire, and my parents would be like, "Yeah, but that's just them, you know." But if I did anything, it's like I am borderline going to jail. I'm going to go to jail. I'm going to be a deadbeat. This is not my margin for error was so much smaller than everybody else's because all of a sudden I'm a black man and I have more avenues to fail than they do. Um, so I guess when I was 18 and whatnot, I was just a college kid, just playing sports, going to college, partying, just living the college life. Anyone else wouldn't bat an eye, but I guess at that time they deemed that I wasn't fit to know about my own story.
And so they wait 20 plus years when you're in your late 20s to provide you with this information.
Hmm.
When had you been provided with this information much sooner, you could have had a chance to meet your grandmother.
Yeah, correct. I could have had met my grandmother, could have had some roots, could have felt like I belonged in the world earlier. I could have had this coming out the fog moment when I was 18,
Okay.
and processing it and now being 29, like, hey, I'm established. I know who I am. I know what I want to do. Not being 29 years old, having your head spinning around, like, wait, who am I? It doesn't seem fair to me.
Well, because it's not fair. And so a lot of these laws surrounding adoption and foster care are completely twisted. And the fact that you not only experienced being an international adoptee, but also a transracial adoptee, it almost magnifies the whole topic surrounding your adoption specifically, because not only am I not in my homeland where my family lives and where my
Mhm.
family resides, but I'm also not even around people who look like me. So I am on a completely different turf. I'm in a completely different world, but I have to learn how to navigate from your perspective, which is different from my perspective, and how the world sees me. And all of this is placed on a child at a very early age. And so you grow up to become Kanu, still with a lot of questions. Do you know if there were any other siblings from either your mother or your father?
No, so I was the firstborn of the family, the first grandchild.
Oh,
That's why my uncle said my grandma would never sign away her firstborn grandchild after losing her daughter. And my uncle said, no, that would make no sense. You were the closest thing to her daughter. Why would she want to give you away permanently? And it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. like yeah, I am. Yeah,
I'm
should have known.
especially considering that she kept you for the first 2 years. To give a child up after
Hmm.
2 years. In most cases, if something like that would have happened, it's because, maybe this individual is sick and, getting ready to succumb to the ailments or what have you. But in your case, it didn't quite happen that way. It was just you
No.
moved off to the US to become the child of another family because perhaps the
Hmm.
dollar is right.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. And whenever I would ask about my adoption or whatnot, my adopted parents would tell me it's too painful of an experience to go back and remember. That process almost killed your mother. That process was so difficult for us, we just can't bear to talk about it right now. And I'm like, unfortunately, I am the result of that process. And I feel like you don't have that choice when you decided to adopt me and take me from a family. So you have to answer these questions. You can't just tell me that it's too painful for you. Like no one died on your side. Like what do you mean
Did
it's not
your
painful?
adoptive
I mean it's
family,
painful. It's
your
just
adoptive parents
the
ever
narrative
think
that I was
to
told and the narrative
get
I'm now seeing. It's eye opening.
did they ever think to get you therapy?
Yes, but they used it with a negative connotation, as if like you keep this up, you're gonna get therapy. So as a kid, in my head, I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't want to be isolated even more than I'm already isolated. I don't want to be punished even more than I'm already punished. So please don't take me to therapy. And that's how I grew up with the mindset of therapy being for the really bad kids, the really bad people need therapy.
So it sounds to me, and you can let me know if I'm wrong. It sounds to me that there was some psychological abuse because all of this is playing on the psyche of a child. Would you agree that there was some psychological abuse with this, narrative surrounding therapy?
I didn't catch that question
Oh, it sounds to
or
me
statement.
like there was it sounds to me like there was some psychological abuse. The fact that therapy is related to bad behavior. If you misbehave, you're going to
Hmm.
get therapy. Would you agree? And because if all of this is played on the psyche of a child, of a teenager, or what have you, it sounds like,
Hmm.
maybe everything was provided for you financially and, everything was provided for you nutrition wise and having clothes, but there was a level of psychological abuse. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I definitely you're right. You're completely right. I think that it's that narrative of them telling me that you should be thankful, you should be grateful and blessed. Like your life could be worse back in Sierra Leone and whatnot. And it's just that constant being told that in different ways. At one point, you're like, yeah, I guess I should be grateful. I guess my sadness isn't worth validating. Um, yeah, so it worked. And just now thinking about, they would tell me, oh, you almost broke up me and your mom. Your mom and I almost got divorced because you manipulated us. You were so manipulative when you were little. And it's like, well, I'm going through my own pain and struggling. I don't think I'm sitting in my bedroom plotting how to divorce my adopted parents. Like I should have done that in the corner, but I'm not that. I'm a little kid, and I'm not that smart.
Mom and I, or you almost split up dad and I? Were those words really used?
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The same because you. They said because you were so manipulative, Kanu. Because of you. That's the reason why. And as a kid who's already isolated, that's heavy. That's heavy to hear.
Not only is it heavy for you, but it's heavy for me, and I'm sure other adoptees, because that in and of itself is another form of manipulation to have a child believe that they are the cause of why mom and dad were almost no longer together.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
is that plays on the psyche of a child. I mean, and really, if we're being serious, that plays on the psyche of anyone, much less a child who's growing up with an adolescent mind. And how do you process that in your early years when you're told something like that?
Yeah, I don't think I ever processed anything from my upbringing. I think I learned how to bury and mask everything perfectly. I was great at that. I was always a class clown or the center of attention, um, just to avoid ever having to sit down and just be in my own feelings. I kept myself moving constantly.
So you stayed busy just to avoid being in the moment to think about your what if. So what if I had stayed with my family in Sierra Leone? You just constantly were on the move and finding
Mm,
things to do to avoid sitting in the moment and dealing with
exactly.
something. Gotcha. And so does that have any effect?
Yeah.
Did that have any effect on you and as in adulthood, say in your relationships?
Mm, yeah. I mean, it became harder to um, build connections and not put all of my trust in people. Because I didn't have my trust in my family at home. So then I put my trust into my friends, and we all learn friends come and go, right? And for an adoptee, someone coming into your life and then leaving your life without any actual valid reason, it hurts. So for some reason, like when friends would like, we're gonna break off, I took it so personally, like you're leaving me. Like, why are you leaving me? What did I do for you to leave me? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, what's happening? It's just friends grow apart. And this made connections harder because now I'm like, I don't want to become friends with anybody because they're just gonna leave me. So
Yeah.
I became more of like a solidified loner, pretty much. I
What
just
I'm
didn't want to
finding,
get hurt.
right, exactly. What I'm finding in the adoption community is that a lot of adoptees in their adulthood, they are finding that therapy has been therapeutic because they now are able to process those emotions and deal with those emotions that they weren't able to deal with as a child. The whole term in the fog, I'm just now learning what that is and how it affects our ability to live in the moment and to understand what our adoption has done to us. And so when you think about the fact that a lot of adoptees are in therapy as an adult, have is that something that you've ever considered?
Yeah, I am all for it. I'm ready. Yeah, I need it. It's going to be beneficial. And now that I'm detaching myself from the narrative that became my core, and recreating myself into who I actually am. Yeah, 100%. I'm for therapy. It's a great idea.
And what is your relationship like now, say with your siblings? As you process and deal with your adoption as an adult, does that affect your relationship with them outside of mom and dad, but your brother or sister, whomever
Yeah.
else was in the house?
hmm Yeah, I have one sibling. I have an older sister who's really being supportive and who's willing to do her own self reflection and be like, "Wow, like, sorry we weren't there for you when you're younger. Like, never crossed our minds and whatnot." It hurts to hear that, like, hey, all this time I was struggling, and you guys were just watching me drown. Um, both my other two siblings, one, my older brother has a family and everything, so has his own life and whatnot, and um, me feeling like I need to fight for his attention and love is just something I don't have the energy for right now. So I'm just kind of letting him do his own thing. My younger brother, who still lives at home, um, I don't really talk to him. He just kind of does his own thing too. I guess everyone in my family is so self-centered that they never took the time to look at their black brother and ask him, "How you doing?" Um, so yeah, so my relationship with them is just up in the air because I'm no longer the mediator. I'm no longer forcing myself like, "Hey, I'll come out to visit you and your family. Oh, I'll come see you. Come stay with me." I'm not doing that anymore. And now that I'm not putting the work out, there's no one coming my way.
I find that to be very common. It seems
hmm
like when you stop initiating the get togethers and the phone calls and things like that, unless you do it, you realize no one is calling you.
hmm hmm
Yeah. and
Yeah.
and even that has to have, because the whole thought of being a transracial adoptee is enough to process, in itself. The fact that you can say, yes, these are my brothers and sisters and this is my mom and dad, and no, they don't look like me, but this is my family. Because growing up, if that's the only family, that's the really the only family that you will likely gravitate to. But naturally
hmm
you have a whole nother family in Sierra Leone. And so you realize as an adult that, all right, so now I see that my purpose in your life has been filled and perhaps you don't need me anymore. Do you feel like that?
Yep. Yep. That you said it perfectly. Wow. Wow. Wow.
That can't be a good feeling. I mean, just, I'm not a transracial adoptee, I'm same race adoptee, but, to realize my purpose in your life, you did your good deed for this poor black child in Africa.
hmm
And now that this child is now an adult, your job is done. And it's not necessary to have a relationship, I mean, or anything else like that. So that's hard to even listen to. So to live in that, I can't imagine that being easy, because again, this is
hmm
the family that you've known your whole life.
Yeah. In my head, it's my only family. Um, so yeah, it's difficult to hear, but you always hear about the adopted child, never the adopted adult. So I guess I'm just in that phase now where I'm now the adopted adult, the one that gets kind of neglected after the child phase. So I'm learning.
So, so do you keep in touch now with your biological family in Sierra Leone?
I do. I do. I had to put a little. I had to set boundaries a little bit, because at the end of the day, I'm just looking for love,
Yeah.
just authentic love. That's all I'm looking for. And I understand their situation's different, their economy is different. Sierra Leone's just a different world compared to the United States, and they see me as someone from the United States. I have an iPhone, I have a car, I live in a house, therefore I have money. Um, I don't mind helping. I was fine helping from the get go. I was like, yes, of course, I'll help. But then once you start having family of family and family of family of family contacting you and not for like, hey, thank God you're back in our life, but hey, thank God you can help me with my college tuition. Thank God you can help me with this. Thank God. So I have to now. I'm in a weird phase of trying to balance two families and trying to determine which one is providing the love that I'm looking for, or if there is the love. It's I have a relationship with them, but we're just working it out.
So their relationship from their perspective, and you can let me know if I'm wrong, is like, oh wow, our nephew is a US citizen, so he can help us financially. Whereas,
Hmm.
you're probably like, no, having an iPhone and a car is very common here in the US. So you're dealing with that with your biological family. And then you're dealing with the estrangement, in a sense, from your adoptive family. So you're sort of living in a world where you probably feel alone. Like this bubble is just with me because I want to have this connection with my biological family outside of my finances. And I want to have a relationship with my
Exactly.
adopted family that's going to be surrounded by love. So you find yourself stuck, if that's safe to say.
That is perfectly safe to say. And you begin to almost question, well, do I actually know what love is? Is it because I know it's conditional. I know when Kanu did something good when he was younger, oh, we love him. He's doing great. Yeah, he has a good head on his shoulders now. But whenever I did something bad, it was you were in trouble, you were being punished, you were isolated, you were sick. You know what I mean? It's just so that wasn't to me. There's moments there were love in there, but a lot of it was conditional. And now with my biological family, it feels like there's a lot of moments of transactional love. So now I'm just trying to. I need to learn to. I guess I'm in the phase. I'm gonna love myself first, and that's the love I'm gonna just distribute out from there.
And it's hard because, like I say, time and time again, every time I speak with an adoptee, this is not a situation that you asked for. So you didn't ask for
Hmm.
this situation, but now you're being tugged, and it's kind of like you're in the middle, and you dealing with the biological family, the adoptive family, and so you're kind of in a sense where you just want to snap out of both sides and just be there for Kanu so that you can do and heal on your own and in the best way that you know you need to, so that if in fact you can be there for your biological family, you can outside of finances, so that you can be there for your adoptive family if you can, however you need to be there for them. But that is going to come with some serious healing, because a lot of times we don't realize the healing it is that we need. So
Hmm.
now that, oh my God, if I'm a biological family, I'm so excited. But when they call and say, hey, Kanu, I need $300, you almost feel
Hmm.
like, well, why are you asking me? I'm happy that you're calling, but
Hmm.
what about calling and saying, hey, Kanu, how are you? How are things going for you? How is the job? Do you like your car? Where do you live? It's surrounded by finances.
Yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
so and so you sort of begin to feel like, well, dag, I'm happy to find you all, but are you guys happy to find me for the same reasons that I'm happy to find
Hmm.
you?
Hmm. And at the end of the day, I did the legwork on both sides of the family. So again, the kid of both families is doing the work for the adults, and it's not right. You know, it's not right. Are you sure? I mean, I don't, I wouldn't ask my nephew for money. I mean, constantly, you would ask someone the same stature and whatnot for money. So it's interesting. It's just different worlds, different cultures and whatnot. But yeah, it does feel like I'm being tugged in both directions.
Do you see this affecting your relationship with your biological family long term?
Yeah, I think I'm in like I don't want to say a make or break because nothing's permanent, but it's they're walking on thin ice is one way of saying it. I'm just very hyper aware now, hyper sensitive. I'm very in tune with my own emotions. I now know what I'm feeling and I can label it. Um, yes, I'm just out for myself now. So I can see the relationship being okay if they're able to self reflect and work on themselves and their own beliefs and their own narratives and whatnot. But if they're in a defensive mode, constantly, and if I'm trying to tell them how I feel, and they're just talking right back over me, then I might have to cut it off for a little bit, give a little bit of a break.
What do you do to get the support that you need? Because going through all of this, you're still trying to process, and you have this relationship with your biological family and now your adoptive family. Obviously, it doesn't sound like either of them are giving you the support that you need as you deal with these emotions. And a lot of times we don't realize we need support, but we do need the support. So how are you getting the support that you need?
Um, well, besides my amazing partner, who's my rock right now, and she's just always there for me and always just allows me to be in my own space and be myself and let me just go through what I'm feeling, which is important. Besides that, I don't have any other methods besides music. Um, because growing up, I was told how to talk, right? You brought me from across the world and then said, you're talking wrong. Um, so I always grew up, whenever I did speak, it was to black people, they say, why are you talking like that? You're talking to a white person. If it was with white people, they say, you're talking wrong, you're talking incorrectly. And then through music, I actually found my own voice. Like, actually, this is how I sound. And through that music, I found myself just talking to myself, just like giving myself, like, we'll be all right and we'll be fine. Just like almost like incorporating it in it. And then even today, I was feeling little shaky, and I listened to all my songs and just I was hearing my own message, and that was just helping me because it's just an earlier version of me talking to the future version.
Wow. Well, I commend you for that. Before I let you go, Kanu, I just want to ask if you don't mind answering this question. Your what is your view on transracial international adoptees or adoption? I'm sorry.
And options. Well, I would say I do not recommend it. I don't condone it. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's ethical. Um, yeah, it's not right. It's not right. And what I'm experiencing, what I've experienced, and what I'm still experiencing, isn't fair to put anybody through unwillingly. You know, you're telling me I'm blessed. I should be thankful, but inside I feel so empty and alone. You know, so no, I don't think transracial adoption should be a thing.
That was so you are the first transracial international adoptee that I've spoken with. So I appreciate you taking the time to share your story with me, to shed more light on such a taboo subject. Um, we don't realize the effects of adoption, and we don't realize, I mean, coming from another country and another continent to make your dream come true, so to speak. I should not have to be
Hmm.
affected by that. And I thank you for sharing this story with me. And I mean, I can only wish you the best of luck with your biological family and your adoptive family as well, because perhaps another dream will come. Another dream will be had. Whereas there's some sort of conviction in there. Last question before I let you go: do you think it will change things if your parents had to talk with you and say, Kanu, we're sorry. We missed the mark. We didn't realize this was happening. We didn't realize we were this way. Do you think an apology at this point would help your relationship with them?
Um, no, just because the damage has been done, right? And it's irreversible. Like for me, not being able to meet my grandma when she was alive this entire time, I was walking around and doing living my life, thinking I was alone. She was just sitting there waiting for me to find my way home. That's something that I will never have. I'll never be able to see myself like through another person unless it's my own child. Um, and as an adoptee, I think that's something very important to us to be able to reflect and see our own selves and people. Um, so no, if they said sorry to me, I would hear them out. I'd say thank you for that apology. I know it probably took a lot for you guys to swallow your own confidence and pride, but you're about 20 years too late. You know.
Yeah. Well, I apologize, and I'm sorry that this is your experience as a transracial international adoptee, because no one should have to live life feeling like this. So, my apology to you is only my apology to you. So, I'm sorry that this is your reality. But I thank you for taking the time to share your story with me on this platform, so that others can hear. And through your story, I'm sure others will be touched by your story and they will be able to say, yeah, I feel the same way. So I am going to, if it's okay, ask you to share your Instagram handle, and maybe we're able to connect with other people who feel the same way you do, to hopefully develop a community of people that you can share that commonality with, and, have that support. Would that be okay?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Kanu. My Instagram handle is it's big dreamer underscore. And feel free to just message me. I'm always open to talk, and I'm open book. I think most adoptees are, not by choice, but we are an open book.
I agree. It took me a very long time to get there, Kanu. I'm being completely honest. It took me a very long time to get there. But now, having people like you and so many others that I've met through Instagram, we're just completely open books, and it's so therapeutic that we have that community to share our stories
Mhm.
with. So with you sharing the story with me, your time is not taken for granted, and I thank you so much.